All right, hey there friends, it's Mandy. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. We are back for another installment of Modify with Mandy. And for today's modification, I'll be showing you how to modify downward facing dog if you have sore wrist. So grab a yoga mat, grab a blanket or a beach towel if you don't have a blanket. And when you're ready, let's get into it. For our modification today, I'll be showing you a couple of different ways on how to modify our downward facing dog for sore wrist. Now, as we work into our downward facing dog, there's quite a bit of pressure that can happen on the wrist there. So especially if you're just looking even in our tabletop, right? We have quite a bit of flexion here in our wrist. And even before we come into our downward facing dog, I want you to just really pay attention to what you're doing with your hands here. So when you come into your tabletop, are you automatically just kind of flopping and relaxing into your fingers and dumping all the weight in the heel of the hand? Or are you spreading your fingers out nice and wide, really pressing down through all 10 pads of the fingertips? And what that does is that will fire up the hand there, and it will distribute the weight across those fingers and take some of the weight out of the heel of the hand, which will in turn relieve some of that pressure in the wrist. And this really applies to anything, tabletop, our plank pose, our downward facing dog, pretty much all poses that we have contact like this with the hands down onto the mat. You really want to fire up through those fingertips to make sure that we're not just kind of collapsing into the wrist here. So that's the first thing. So I know that's not really a modification, more just an alignment tip, but you might check that out before trying these next ones first and just see how that feels into the pose for you, because that might fix that tenderness that you're feeling in your wrist there. Now, if it doesn't, and you'll see I have a blanket here. We're going to get into that in a little bit. First, I'm going to show you a cool little trick that I learned from my teacher in my yoga teacher training. So you're kind of getting ready to come into your downward facing dog. So if you're in your tabletop here, you take a little bit of your yoga mat, fold it. So you're doing like a little S fold here. So we're just taking a little bit and bloop, folding it right over itself. And now you should see here, there's an extra bit of thickness into that yoga mat. So then you would place the heel of your hand right over top of that fold. So that way you get a little bit of a lift there. So that way when we make our way into our downward facing dog, you're still firing up through those fingertips here, but you don't have as much flexion in those wrists, which should help with some of the tenderness there. And then of course I'm strongly pressing up and back with my shoulders, my head is relaxed, I'm sending my tailbone up towards the sky and my heels down towards the floor. I have a little bit of a bend into my knees here because I haven't quite warmed up yet, so I'm still a little bit tight in my hamstrings. But that is the first thing you can do. Another thing you can do, which is why I brought our blanket. So if you have a mat that doesn't fold super easily, or if maybe you're just not keen on folding your yoga mat up, take your blanket or your towel. You're going to lay it out in front of you here, and same exact thing. So if you have a blanket with fringes, make sure the fringes are facing towards you. You would just place the heel of your hand right on the edge of that folded blanket. Now for me, this is a pretty thick blanket, so this feels like a lot. If you want, you can even fold it up a lot and take it like this. I think that's too much, but you can try it out. You know your hands, you know your wrist. I think a little bit of a less fold is probably a little bit better here though. So heel of the hand right on the fold of that blanket, grounding down through all 10 pads, the fingertips, and then we would tuck our toes under and begin to send those hips up and back for that downward facing dog. And there we have it. So these are just a couple of things that you can do to use props to take some of the pressure out of the wrist. The next thing that I'm going to show you will be our dolphin pose. So let me get our blanket out of the way here. So for our dolphin pose, essentially instead of being on our wrist in our downward facing dog, we would be on our forearms. So you might have even seen, so you might have come into forearm plank before, and that's actually where we're going to start. So from your tabletop, just begin to place your elbows down onto the mat. Arms are parallel with one another. And then begin to grab your opposite elbows here just to make sure. So you're kind of checking the length of your forearm here to make sure that your elbows are underneath those shoulders. And then from here, lower arms parallel with one another, press the palms down into the earth, fingertips spread wide. So then you might be in your forearm plank here. Maybe you start to walk those feet up. Again, you'll have a little bit more of a bend into your knees here. And then from here in our dolphin pose, so this can be a lot on the shoulders, but it would completely take the wrist out of the equation. You just begin to press up and back, pressing down to the forearms, pressing down through the palms, setting those tailbone up and back, and then pressing the heels down. Again, you see I have a pretty generous bend into my knees here. Just because with our dolphin pose, you have to be a little bit more open to be able to straighten those legs a little bit more. But anyways, so that is our second option for our downward facing dog. So remember, you can prop it up, placing either double folding your mat or placing a blanket or just something else. Maybe even place a towel underneath the heel of the hand to just kind of get some of the flexion out of the wrist. Or if that still doesn't work, then just drop down to your forearms for a dolphin variation. And that will work absolutely wonderfully too. And remember, you can use these same modifications in your tabletop and your plank poses, really any pose where you have your hands down onto the floor. If you're feeling some wrist sensitivity, all of these things will should help for those poses as well. So thank you all so much for being here for this installment of Modification Monday. If you have a pose that you would like to see modified next, please don't hesitate to drop a comment down below. Reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram. You can also email me as well. All of my contact information is down in the description box below. Let's close this out. Bring your hands together at your heart. Drop your chin down to your chest. We'll take a deep breath in. Deep breath out. Thank you all again so much for being here. The love, the light, and the darkness within me sees, honors, and recognizes the love, the light, and the darkness within you. Namaste.